What if the very stress that keeps you awake at night could actually become the fuel that drives you forward? What if the pressure you feel every day isn't a sign of weakness, but a hidden invitation to grow stronger? And what if resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, could be trained in the same way muscles grow stronger after a workout? We live in a world that doesn't slow down. Deadlines get tighter, expectations get higher, and technology ensures that we are always reachable, always on. For many people, stress has become the silent background noise of everyday life. But here's the paradox. While stress is often viewed as the enemy, it can also be the spark that builds resilience, courage, and strength. The difference lies in how we interpret stress and how we train our minds to respond to it. This is where mindset becomes not just helpful, but life-changing. In this journey from stress to strength, we need to start by breaking down what stress really is. Stress is not the email that arrives at 10 p.m. or the argument you had with your boss. Stress is your body's response to a perceived challenge. It is the release of adrenaline and cortisol preparing you to act, to focus, and to survive. In its rawest form, stress is energy. That energy can either overwhelm you, causing burnout and anxiety, or it can be harnessed, redirected, and used as momentum. The key difference is mindset. A fixed mindset views stress as something purely negative, an obstacle that drains life, health, and happiness. People trapped in this mindset often see challenges as threats. They withdraw, avoid, or collapse under pressure. A growth mindset, however, interprets stress differently. It recognizes the discomfort, but reframes it as an opportunity. Instead of saying, "This pressure will break me," a growth-oriented perspective asks, "What can I learn? How can I adapt? And how might this moment forge me into someone stronger?" Science supports this shift. Research from Stanford psychologist Kelly McGonigal shows that when people change their perception of stress from harmful to potentially helpful, their physical responses shift as well. Blood vessels remain more relaxed, heart rates become more adaptive, and performance improves. In other words, stress interpreted through the lens of growth is not toxic, it's training. This doesn't mean we pretend stress feels good. It doesn't mean denying that sleepless nights or overwhelming workloads are difficult. What it does mean is that we can choose to meet stress with curiosity instead of fear. We can ask ourselves, how can I use this energy, this signal, this moment, to build resilience instead of eroding my strength? Let's ground this in a simple example. Imagine two employees facing the same challenge, a massive project with an impossible deadline. The first person, who believes stress is purely destructive, immediately feels crushed. They focus on how unfair it is, how they are doomed to fail, and how this workload will ruin their health. Their body responds accordingly: tense shoulders, shallow breathing, constant fatigue. The second person, however, sees the deadline as a test. Yes, it is stressful, but they reframe it as a chance to sharpen time management, to practice teamwork under pressure, and to prove their capacity to adapt. Their body still feels the pressure, but their mind channels it into motivation. Same stressor, two mindsets, two completely different outcomes. This is the first step in turning stress into strength, reframing. Reframing doesn't eliminate the challenge, but it shifts the story you tell yourself about it. Language is powerful here. Notice the difference between saying "I'm stressed" and saying "I'm energized to meet this challenge." One closes the door, the other opens it. One frames you as a victim, the other frames you as an active participant. But resilience goes beyond just reframing. True resilience is about building a foundation that allows you to withstand storms without collapsing. Think of a tree in heavy wind. The rigid tree that refuses to bend is the one that breaks. The resilient tree is rooted deeply in the ground, but flexible enough to sway with the gusts. Resilience is not about never feeling stress. It is about staying grounded while moving. To build this kind of resilience, we have to train our mindset daily. Just as athletes strengthen their muscles through repeated stress and recovery, we strengthen our resilience by facing small challenges, recovering and integrating what we've learned. It's like mental weightlifting. Each stressful moment becomes a repetition, a chance to build endurance. The more we practice, the stronger we become. Consider the Navy SEALs, some of the most resilient individuals on the planet. Their training deliberately introduces extreme stress, cold water, sleep deprivation, endless physical challenges, not to break them, but to teach them that the human body and mind are capable of far more than we imagine. What separates those who succeed from those who quit is not just physical strength, but mindset. They learn to breathe through discomfort, to see fear as data, and to turn stress into focus. This principle applies to everyday life, even if we're not jumping out of helicopters. You might ask, how do ordinary people, not soldiers or elite athletes, practice this kind of mindset? The answer lies in small, consistent choices. Breathing exercises that shift your nervous system from panic to calm. Journaling that allows you to reflect on stress instead of being consumed by it. Setting micro goals that give you small wins and momentum even in overwhelming situations. Practicing gratitude so that even in chaos, your brain remembers that not everything is broken. These are not glamorous practices, but they are powerful ones. Stress, when left unchecked, narrows our focus to only the problem. But resilience widens our lens. It reminds us that while one part of life feels on fire, other parts may still be whole. A single mistake does not define your career. A single failure does not define your worth. A resilient mindset zooms out, refuses to let one stressful moment become the entire story, and looks for what can still be controlled, learned, or built upon. We also need to remember that resilience does not mean going it alone. In fact, one of the strongest predictors of resilience is connection. Human beings are wired for support. Sharing your struggles with a trusted friend, colleague, or mentor reframes stress as a shared human experience, not an isolated burden. Connection transforms stress from mine alone into ours together, which lightens the load and strengthens the bond. So when we talk about moving from stress to strength, we are really talking about rewiring how we see, feel, and respond to pressure. We are talking about adopting a mindset that doesn't deny stress, but engages it, learns from it, and ultimately uses it as training. The first part of that journey is awareness, catching yourself when you say this is too much, and instead asking what can I build here? The second part is practice, using reframing, breathing, reflection, and connection as tools, not just concepts. And the third part is patience, remembering that resilience is not built overnight but through repeated practice. Stress is inevitable, but suffering is not. With the right mindset, stress can stop being a threat and start being a teacher. It can stop being the thing that holds you back and start being the very force that pushes you forward. And that shift from fear to curiosity, from panic to strength, is where resilience begins. If part 1 showed us how stress can be reframed from an enemy into a hidden ally, part 2 is where we begin to translate those insights into lived practices. Because it is one thing to know that mindset matters, it is another thing entirely to train it until it becomes your natural response. Building resilience is like weaving a rope. Each small thread on its own may not seem strong, but together they create something unbreakable. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked aspects of resilience, awareness of the body. Stress is not just a mental experience, it is profoundly physical. Your muscles tighten, your stomach churns, your breath shortens, and your heart races. Too often we interpret these sensations as proof that we are failing, but in reality, they are proof that your body is preparing you for action. Resilient people don't ignore these signals, nor do they fear them. They learn to listen. They say to themselves, my body is telling me I'm ready. This energy is fuel, not failure. This is where practices like mindful breathing come in. In moments of stress, one of the simplest but most powerful tools you have is your breath. A few deep, slow breaths can shift your nervous system from fight or flight into a calmer state. This doesn't magically erase the problem, but it creates enough space for your brain to think clearly. Think of it as pressing pause before you press play again. Elite performers, surgeons, athletes, even astronauts rely on breathing techniques not because they are mystical, but because they are practical. The ability to calm your body under stress is the foundation of calm decision-making. Beyond breathing, movement itself becomes a resilience practice. Exercise, whether it's a daily walk, a workout, or yoga, teaches the body that stress is survivable. When you push your body physically, you simulate stress in a safe environment and then recover. This sends a powerful message to the brain. I can handle discomfort. Over time, this lesson spills over into other areas of life. A tough meeting, a financial setback, a heated argument, each becomes less threatening when your body has been trained to face and recover from strain. But resilience is not only physical, it is also deeply cognitive. Our thoughts are the lens through which stress is magnified or minimized. A fixed mindset might tell you, "This always happens to me. I'm terrible under pressure. I'll never succeed." A growth mindset interrupts that loop and asks, "What's the opportunity here? What skill can I strengthen through this challenge? How can this situation make me sharper next time?" Notice that the stressor doesn't change, but the narrative does, and the narrative determines your response. One powerful cognitive tool for resilience is what psychologists call cognitive reappraisal. It's the practice of looking at the same situation from a different perspective. Let's say you've been asked to give a presentation in front of your entire company. Your first thought might be, "This is terrifying. I could embarrass myself." But with reappraisal, you flip the script. "This is a rare chance to show what I've been working on. My nervousness is just my body gearing up to help me focus." This shift in interpretation reduces fear and increases confidence. In fact, studies show that people who use reappraisal regularly not only cope better with stress, but also report higher levels of well-being. Another essential pillar of resilience is adaptability. The world is unpredictable, and no amount of planning can guarantee that everything will go smoothly. Adaptability means developing the mental flexibility to pivot without losing your center. Imagine a river encountering a boulder. The river doesn't stop or complain. It flows around the obstacle and continues forward. Resilient people behave in much the same way. They allow themselves to bend and adjust while still moving toward their goals. Adaptability can be trained through small daily practices. When something doesn't go as planned, your train is late, a meeting is cancelled, a client changes direction, you can choose to see it not as an unbearable setback, but as an opportunity to practice flexibility. Ask yourself, how can I use this unexpected moment productively? Over time, these micro-adaptations accumulate into macro-resilience. Social connection also plays a massive role. Stress often tricks us into isolation, whispering that we should hide our struggles or carry the load alone. But research is clear. People with strong social networks are more resilient. Connection provides perspective. When you share your stress with someone who listens, your brain literally calms down. The amygdala, the part responsible for fear responses, becomes less active. This is why a simple conversation with a trusted friend can feel like a weight lifting. Networking, then, is not just a career strategy, it's a resilience strategy. Building authentic relationships creates a safety net. When stress hits, you have people to lean on, people who remind you of your strengths when you forget them yourself. And this doesn't only apply in personal life. In the workplace, strong networks of colleagues create resilience at an organizational level. Teams that communicate openly and support one another recover faster from crises than teams that operate in isolation. At the core of all these practices, breathing, movement, reframing, adaptability, connection, is one central truth. Resilience is not about removing stress, it's about transforming it. You cannot eliminate the waves of life, but you can learn to surf them. Each stressful experience becomes a training ground, a chance to practice and strengthen the mindset you want to carry into the future. Now let's address a common misconception. Resilience does not mean suppressing emotions. Some people believe that to be resilient is to be stoic, unfeeling, and unaffected. But real resilience is not about being emotionless. It's about allowing emotions to flow without letting them drown you. Anger, sadness, fear. These are natural responses. Resilience means you acknowledge them, process them, and then move forward rather than staying stuck. It's emotional agility. For example, when you receive harsh feedback at work, it's natural to feel defensive or hurt. Resilience doesn't mean pretending you don't feel that sting. It means pausing, breathing, acknowledging the discomfort, and then asking, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this feedback instead of shutting down? That's the shift from fragility to strength. There is also a spiritual dimension to resilience, though it doesn't always have to be religious. For many people, a sense of purpose is the ultimate anchor. When you know why you are enduring stress, the how becomes easier to handle. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that those who had a sense of meaning were far more likely to survive unimaginable suffering. Purpose transforms stress into sacrifice, pain into growth. So part of resilience is asking yourself, what am I working toward? What larger story is my struggle a part of? In fact, resilience often flourishes in the presence of hope. Hope is not blind optimism. It is the conviction that no matter how dark today seems, tomorrow holds possibility. Hope fuels perseverance. Hope reframes setbacks as temporary. Hope keeps you moving when stress says stop. And here's the good news. Hope can be cultivated. Surround yourself with hopeful people. Consume hopeful stories and speak hopeful words to yourself. These habits train the brain to expect possibility even in difficulty. To summarize part 2, resilience is not a single skill, but a collection of practices woven together. Calming the body through breath and movement, reframing thoughts through a growth mindset, practicing adaptability in small daily moments, building strong social connections, embracing emotions instead of denying them, and anchoring yourself in purpose and hope. Each practice strengthens the others. Together, they create a foundation that allows you not only to endure stress, but to transform it into strength. Stress, then, is no longer the signal of defeat. It becomes the invitation to rise. The more you practice, the more natural this response becomes. And over time, resilience stops being something you do and starts being who you are. Resilience, as we've discovered so far, is both a mindset and a practice. But knowing the theory is never enough. In this final part, let's go deeper into how resilience is applied in real life, in careers, in relationships, and in personal growth. Because resilience is not an abstract quality, it is forged in the very moments when you feel least capable. Picture this. A young professional is suddenly given responsibility for a major project after her manager resigns unexpectedly. The deadline is tight, the expectations are high, and she feels the weight of eyes watching her every move. Without resilience, she might crumble under pressure, second-guess her every choice, and exhaust herself with anxiety. But with resilience, she can reframe the situation. This is stressful, yes, but it is also an opportunity to prove what I am capable of. If I approach this step by step, using my network and staying adaptable, I can turn this pressure into performance. The project may still be tough, but the way she holds herself through it is transformed. Stress becomes strength. This isn't just hypothetical. Countless leaders in every field credit resilience as the key to their breakthroughs. Entrepreneurs, for example, often face repeated failures. Statistics show that most startups collapse within the first 5 years. Yet what separates those who try again and succeed from those who stop altogether is not luck, it's resilience. The resilient entrepreneur sees a failed launch not as proof that they should give up, but as data. They analyze, adjust, and try again. Their mindset turns setbacks into stepping stones. In medicine, resilience is equally vital. Consider doctors and nurses working long shifts in emergency rooms. The stress levels are astronomical. But the ones who thrive do so because they have cultivated inner practices of composure and adaptability. They breathe, they reframe, they lean on their colleagues for support, and they remind themselves of their purpose, saving lives. Without that resilience, burnout would overwhelm them. With it, they not only endure but continue to serve with compassion. Resilience also reshapes how we view relationships. In a world of constant stress, conflict with others is inevitable, whether with colleagues, family, or friends. Without resilience, we tend to react impulsively, letting stress dictate our tone and decisions. But resilient people bring calm into conflict. They listen even when they feel defensive. They pause before responding. They remind themselves that disagreement is not disaster, and that healthy relationships grow stronger when tested. By choosing this mindset, stress in relationships can actually deepen trust and connection. So how do you personally take these ideas and make them daily habits? Let's explore practical rituals. One powerful habit is what I call the resilience reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself 3 questions. What stressed me today? How did I respond? How could I respond differently next time? Writing down these reflections creates awareness and growth. Over time, you'll notice patterns and begin naturally shifting toward healthier responses. Another practice is gratitude. It may sound simple, even cliché, but gratitude is a proven resilience booster. When you deliberately focus on what you are thankful for, your brain shifts attention from threat to possibility. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, it means balancing them with perspective. Research shows that people who keep a daily gratitude journal sleep better, report less stress, and recover faster from setbacks. Gratitude doesn't erase hardship, but it fuels the strength to keep going. Visualization is another tool. Before entering a stressful situation, a job interview, a big exam, a difficult conversation, close your eyes and visualize yourself handling it with calm and confidence. Imagine the nerves, the racing heart, and then imagine yourself breathing steadily, speaking clearly, and finishing strong. The brain responds to this imagery almost as if it were real, priming you for resilience when the actual moment arrives. We also cannot ignore the role of self-care. You cannot build resilience if you are running on empty. Sleep, nutrition, and rest are not luxuries, they are resilience strategies. Think of yourself like an athlete. An athlete trains, yes, but also recovers. Without recovery, performance collapses. Resilience is the same. You need to refuel in order to continue showing up strong. On a deeper level, resilience involves identity. If you see yourself as fragile, stress will always confirm it. But if you begin to identify yourself as someone who grows under pressure, every challenge becomes proof of that identity. Language matters. Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," say, "This is hard, but I am learning to handle it." Instead of, "I always fail under stress," try, "Every time I face stress, I get a little better." Over time, these affirmations solidify into beliefs, and beliefs drive behavior. There's also a collective dimension. Resilience is not just individual, it's cultural. Organizations, communities, and even families can build cultures of resilience. In workplaces, this might look like leaders who normalize challenges instead of shaming mistakes, who encourage open conversations about stress, and who celebrate adaptability. In families, it might look like parents teaching children that failure is part of learning. In communities, it could mean coming together in times of crisis instead of scattering apart. When resilience becomes cultural, individuals feel supported and strength multiplies. Let's also recognize that resilience is not linear. You won't always feel strong. There will be days when stress overwhelms you, when you break down, when you feel like giving up. That doesn't mean you have failed at resilience. It means you are human. Resilience is not about never falling. It's about always rising again. Each recovery makes you stronger. Each comeback writes resilience deeper into your character. Some of the world's most admired figures embody this truth. Nelson Mandela endured 27 years in prison, yet emerged with a mindset of forgiveness and strength that transformed a nation. Malala Yousafzai survived an assassination attempt and turned it into a global movement for education. Their stories remind us, resilience is not the absence of pain. It is the courage to transform pain into purpose. For you, resilience might not mean changing the world. It might mean showing up for your family even when you're exhausted. It might mean continuing your studies despite setbacks. It might mean finding the strength to smile when life feels heavy. These everyday acts of resilience are no less powerful than the grand stories. Each moment you choose strength over surrender, you become a quiet inspiration to those around you. As we close this journey from stress to strength, remember, stress is not the enemy. It is a signal, a teacher, an invitation. With the right mindset, every wave of stress can become a wave you ride toward growth. Resilience is not a rare gift. It is a skill you can practice daily. Breathe, reframe, connect, recover, and anchor yourself in purpose. Over time, you will look back and realize that the situations which once broke you have become the very ones that built you. And here is the final message. Resilience is not just about surviving. It is about thriving. It is about becoming stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of what you have endured. Stress will always be part of life, but with resilience, it no longer controls you. You control how you respond, and in that response lies your freedom. If this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Inspire someone else who may be carrying heavy stress today. And if you found strength in these words, support our journey by liking this video, subscribing to Think Fresh Daily, and turning on notifications so you never miss another insight. Together, we can build a community of resilience, one that transforms stress into strength and challenges into victories.